I'm Gargi. I think we've met a couple months ago, actually. Um, and I go to UNC Chapel Hill. I'm an undergrad student, and I am studying computer science. And these are just some pictures of me and where I lived in India. So the pictures in the middle show some old palaces and forts in India. So it's really cool how much there is to explore. And some of my favorite places are kind of pictured here.
Nice to see you guys again. My name is Jake. I'm an undergraduate student in my freshman year at UNC. I'm majoring in anthropology. And here's some photos from my travels as well. If any of you remember, I took a gap year before coming to UNC. And during that time, I was in Cuba and in Navajo Nation primarily. But I also went to Sweden and Norway and Israel and all over the place. And then up in the top left there is a photo of where I'm from. That's the city of Syracuse, which is a small city in upstate New York.
All right, so this slide shows kind of where our respective countries are on the map. So you can see India on the right and then Cuba on the left.
So we're going to start with a little focus question here. And Ms. Barsanti, we'll have you call on people so it doesn't get hectic through the computer. To start out, you guys can tell the person on your left your favorite sport. And then after that, you can tell the person on your right your favorite sport.
So I hope you guys shared your favorite sports and kind of building off of that, which sports are played in the US? So what sports can you guys name? Raise your hand if you can think of one.
Okay, so now you all can raise your hands if you can think of any sports that are popular outside of the United States. For example, whether in Canada or England or somewhere else around the world. All right, great job, guys. Next, we're gonna sit down and Gargi, you can take it away.
Yeah, we'll start by talking about some sports in India. So we're going to start by talking more about the history of sport in India. So in ancient India, there were a lot of different games that they used to play that are very similar to some of the games we have today. So the first picture kind of shows chess. So the picture of the board game, it looks very similar to chess, but it's called Chaturanga. So Chaturanga is a board game that was very similar to chess that was played in ancient India. And then the picture right beside it shows wrestling, right? So in ancient India, there was a sport called Pehlwani, and that was basically wrestling, and it was played on like a muddy arena outside. Um, and then the picture on the very left, it looks kind of like gymnastics, right? There's like a pole and a gymnast who's kind of doing gymnastics around the pole. And this is called Malakam, and it's also a traditional sport that wrestlers used to play to kind of increase their strength and their balance and things like that. And then the last one on the right is called Kabaddi, and this is a game that's played like in schools. It's kind of similar to tag, but it involves a lot more kind of force and strength as well. Okay, and then speaking about more recent modern sports, I think you guys named a few of these when you were talking about sports played outside the US. The first kind of main one is cricket, which is on like the bottom left. And the first picture on the bottom left shows a cricket stadium in India, and it's the biggest cricket stadium in the world. And I think it was constructed pretty recently, a few years ago. And then the second picture also, it shows hockey. So hockey is another sport that's played in India. And then the last one is badminton. So I don't know if you guys know what badminton is, but it's very similar to tennis, I guess, except instead of a ball, you use a shuttle or a shuttlecock. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about cricket. If any of you have heard of or played cricket before, can you raise your hand? So raise your hand if you've played it or if you've heard of cricket.
We only have a couple.
Okay, I see a couple hands. That's good. It's very simple. It involves a bat and a ball, like you see in the picture. And then there's two teams, and one team does all the batting, and then the other team does fielding. And each team has 11 players. So there's 11 people who bat and then 11 people who field. And it was started in England. So it might seem really similar to baseball, right? Because there's batters and fielders, and two teams and all of that. But there are a couple of differences, which we'll see. Okay, so this is kind of a clip of a professional cricket match in India. It's taken really seriously. You'll see all the stadium is like completely full and there's screaming fans. But I want you to look at it and kind of see what differences do you notice between cricket and baseball.
Here we are for the final day of the fourth test. Test match up for grabs, the series up for grabs. Australia requiring 10 wickets. India requiring 324 runs. Paddy takes the catch. Australia get the breakthrough. As always, it's that man, Paddy Cummins. Rohit Sharma has to go. Nice work behind the stumps by the Australian keeper. India lose their first.
Hard at that. Nicely put away. That sort of full zone generally works, but on this occasion it works for Shubman Gill. Classic cover drive.
Oh!
Go down the leg side. Quite far down, but he's interested, Nathan Lyon.
Red decision not out. Back is outside. In the wickets umpire's call.
If it had been given out, that decision would have remained. Watch the sound of the bat from Shubman Gill. Wow.
Lyon to Gill. That's a beautiful shot. Couple of steps down the wicket, driven away through the covers. Gill moves to 47.
So yeah, there are a couple of differences. I don't know if you could tell from the short video, but the bat in cricket is a lot flatter than the baseball bat would be. And cricket has 11 players on a team, whereas baseball has 9. And then the playing field is very different in its size and shape, right? There's no bases or anything like that. So yeah, that's different. So that clip was very professional, right? Like a real sport being played between two national teams. But cricket is also really popular amongst the like day-to-day people. And a version of cricket that's played by pretty much everybody is street cricket, or gully cricket as it's called. And so this type of cricket is like very informal. People set up their stumps and their bat and everything in like really random places, like on the street or in a park or anywhere, kind of wherever they can find the space. So it's really fun. And if you visit India, you'll see a lot of these games kind of happening impromptu. Next, we're going to talk about a different sport, not cricket, but a sport that's considered India's national sport. So India's national sport is actually field hockey, which is kind of surprising because cricket is so popular, but field hockey is the actual national sport. And India is really good at field hockey. They've won 8 gold medals since the 1928 Olympics. Okay, and then women's field hockey is also really good in India. And the picture on the right kind of shows a Vogue magazine cover where last year India's women's field hockey team was pictured and featured in the magazine. And hockey is also kind of part of the popular culture. So there's a clip from a movie that I'm going to show you that it was inspired by the women's hockey team and their win at the Commonwealth Games. So this movie kind of shows a clip, or this clip kind of shows a little bit of the movie about women's hockey.
So next we're going to switch over to talk a little bit about sports in Cuba. The first sport to be popular in Cuba was chess, which was brought to Cuba by the Spanish, who originally settled the island. And later, the Cuban people learned baseball through a bunch of Cuban students who went to study in the United States and brought it back to the island. And kind of like cricket in India, they had that influence from an outside country, but it became really, really popular in Cuba. And today, baseball is Cuba's most popular sport. So, under Fidel Castro, who was the president of Cuba after the Cuban Revolution, sports became a really big thing in the country. And he was determined to let all people, rich and poor, have the opportunity to train. And the reason that he did this is because it was really important to him as a young and newly independent country. He would prove to the world how strong Cuba was based on their success in sports. Fun fact about the president Fidel Castro. There's an old story that he was scouted by the New York Yankees before the revolution. We now know that story is just a legend, but it does illustrate how important baseball is to the country and how much their president loved it and saw it as an essential part of Cuban national identity. This is a little tidbit. Cuba's women's volleyball team is actually the best volleyball team in all Olympic history. Especially from the 1980s to the early 2000s, the Cuban women's volleyball team was extremely strong and won gold medal after gold medal at the Olympics. But even today, a team has never done as well as them. So a little bit about baseball in Cuba today. Cuba is considered to have some of the best baseball teams in Latin America. And Cubans love both going to baseball games and rooting for their local teams, as well as playing baseball in the street, kind of like cricket in India. Tickets to baseball games in Cuba cost around 5 American cents. And it isn't like it is in the US, how if you go to a baseball game, there's people going around with food and there's comfortable chairs, everyone hanging out. It's a lot more bare bones than that, but the tickets are cheap, the people really enjoy the games, and it's a popular form of entertainment. And there's a different baseball team for every one of Cuba's provinces, and there's 2 in the capital. So rivalries between provinces are very friendly but intense, I'll say. Liz, if you could click the video here, this is a quick video on Cuban street baseball.
De pequeño siempre nos ha gustado mucho la pelota y nunca nos ha detenido precisamente la escasez de las cosas que necesitamos para hacer un juego. No teníamos guantes, ni pelota, ni bate. Podíamos coger un pedazo de trapo, una piedra, un poco de escolté, de tape, lo que fuera, y con eso nosotros podíamos hacer una pelota. Y les voy a mostrar un ejemplo. Cogíamos una piedra, un pedazo de trapo cualquiera y comenzábamos a hacer su envoltura de manera tal que fuera cogiendo la forma más redonda posible. La piedra lo que le daba era la consistencia del peso para poderla pichar y que cuando se le diera con el bate caminara. Usábamos también un pedazo de hilo, de soga, algo para amarrarle y después envolvíamos el tape. La podías coger con la mano y no te lastimaba precisamente porque no teníamos guantes. Pasábamos un buen rato, jugábamos y se ratificaba, se reafirmaba el gusto por la pelota que siempre tuvimos. Nosotros no nos detiene nada para jugar a la pelota. Es el deporte nacional. Siempre lo ha sido y lo va a ser siempre.
That's a really cool video because it just shows how much, how popular that baseball is in Cuba. And even the country's poorest residents, they play it in the street, they play it with their friends. And you saw they couldn't even afford a baseball bat and a baseball ball. But they were still playing and they enjoyed it. And it's really, it's a big part of their national identity today. The next sport that's pretty popular in Cuba still is boxing, which is both popular in organized teams and in amateur leagues. Boxing is the sport for which Cuba's won the most Olympic medals at 73 medals in boxing total, including 37 gold, 19 silver, and 17 bronze. So that is a huge amount of Olympic medals. And what you see on the bottom left there is also there's an increasing movement among Cuban women to be able to participate in the boxing culture because in the past there's been a no women rule, and a lot of people have been upset by that. So there's been more and more female boxers standing up for themselves, not only to play in local leagues, but from the national and international level as well.
Okay, so time for a quick quiz based on what we talked about so far. The first question about India is, name 3 popular sports played in India. So if you remember one of the sports we talked about, you can shout out its name. Okay, cricket. And then a couple others were also hockey and badminton, wrestling.
Oh, yes, you got it. All right.
All right, next question. What is India's national sport? Is it hockey or is it cricket? It's actually hockey, but there's a lot of people in India who want to make it cricket, so I guess they agree with you all. How many players are in a cricket team? A, 5, B, 8, and C, 11. It is C, 11 players. Good job.
Some review questions about sports in Cuba. So the first one is, why did Cuba need to be so good at sports? Is it A, to prove they were strong, B, to beat their rival, Puerto Rico, or C, to make money? Okay, so it is A for this one. Cuba is one of the youngest countries in our hemisphere. It's only been independent since 1959, and so they were really determined when they became a new country that they would show the world how strong they were by showing everyone how good at sports they were. This one is a little easier. Which is the most popular sport in Cuba today? A, boxing, B, baseball, or C, football? So boxing and baseball are both really popular, but the answer is B, baseball. It's been the most popular sport in Cuba for probably 60 years now. The last question here, which Cuban president loved baseball? Is it Simón Bolívar? Is it Shakira? Or is it Fidel Castro? Yes, good job. It is C, Fidel Castro.
All right, well, thank you guys for participating. In conclusion, we just wanted to say that each country has its own unique sports and its own unique culture, and we hope you liked learning about these new sports and, maybe start thinking about which sports out of these you'd like to learn to play.